Welcome back to r/legal advice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, HOA sends me a deed restriction notice that is not an actual violation. I got 2 dairy goats 3 weeks ago. When we bought the house, they did not give us the whole 11-page CC&Rs, it was a 1-page blurb without any info to find out what the whole thing was. Fast forward 2.5 years. I bought 2 more dairy goats, size of large dogs and much quieter. After the first 24 hours of bringing them home, I get a visit from the constables. And after some confusion if I called to complain about goats in my backyard, we determined that it was not illegal for me to have goats in my backyard because I live in the county, and if there was an issue it was an HOA issue and they couldn't enforce it anyway. The next week comes. When I come home from work, there's a notice to call the SPCA. I call and leave a message. In the meantime, I spent 2 hours online trying to find our complete HOA rules. Next day the investigator calls and says the complaint is about no water for the goats and eye infections not being treated. Number 1, they had 2 containers of water in case one failed or got dirty. Number 2, no eye infections at all, but this information told me who called in the complaint. Who is my friendly neighbor. Because the water container had a hole in it, so I sent the pictures to prove the animals had water and were not sick. So the next week my HOA sent me a letter saying that I was in violation of having livestock, but my HOA actually doesn't have rules about any animals. I asked them what subsection I violated. I was on hold for 5 to 10 minutes and then she comes back on the line.
I'm not able to find it at this moment. Can I get your contact info and I will send it to you?
Me, okay, give them my information. So I see here I need to contest this at the next board meeting. Please set that up. Secretary.
Oh yes ma'am, I will have the president contact you.
Well, it has been 6 days, no contract. The next thing she said was,
well, it wasn't something we observed, but a neighbor complained.
I asked if they bothered to look at the HOA guidelines before sending out the letter, and if not, why am I getting a violation? And a user in the comments said, you should make sure to attend the HOA meetings from now on, because I bet this neighbor of yours is going to try to get language about animals, specifically goats, added to the CC&R, and there are rules on how that is done and such. Be proactive. And then OP responded, I plan on it, also plan on running for the board. And another person said, that is what a buddy of mine did, bought a condo in Southern California, really nice neighborhood, was having issues with particular elderly ladies screwing with him, eventually actually vandalizing his vehicle, but that came later. He was getting constant letters and citations from the HOA/condo association. He eventually decided to run for the board and served as vice president. He explained to me it is the absolute best position as you get the most power with the least culpability. In the event that the association gets sued, the VP cannot be held liable for actions of the association. I don't know how true any of that is, it is just what he told me. And I gotta say guys, I would have really loved to see the CC&Rs of an HOA that specifies how you should handle goats in your garden. I suppose at some point the CC&Rs will also specify what is the best way to wipe your butt. But anyway, let's see what the update brings. And the next one is an update to the goat story. It is titled, Goats Are Staying, well, hopefully. So after not hearing back from the HOA since May 20th, I called back today. Got someone useful and amusing on the phone. She pulls up the information. I ask again what subsection I violated and she says, hold on, let me look it up. She keeps me on the line while she does it. She's like,
sorry, it is taking so long, there are just so many rules. Weird, it states what type of plugs and how many.
Silence for a bit.
I'm so glad I don't live in an HOA.
Insert surprised Pikachu face on my end. Hold my tongue about how she works for one. Silence for a bit longer.
Let me look in the other place. No, not here. Okay, one last thing to look at.
Silence.
Nope, they're either weird, it is usually one of the top few things. No, so there isn't anything I can see forbidding it. Let me get your info and talk to the manager and call you back. And if it is not a violation, I'm going to remove it.
No call back today, but I'm calling tomorrow. If they cannot find the violation, then they need to leave me alone, or next step, peacock. Also, I will be attending every meeting from now on. Update: the goats are staying. I called the HOA again to be told that the violation has been removed. So one win down. New problem is neighbors are calling the SPCA weekly now with more make-believe issues. The investigator is now not even coming out, just calling to inform me and close the case. I have an anxiety problem. Every time she calls I get horrible panic attacks even though I know I'm not doing anything wrong. Also, I work with animals. I don't know if constantly being on the SPCA's investigation list is going to somehow cost me clients, probably just overthinking that, but who knows. I was told I need to get a lawyer to get an affidavit to open her files on me, to get the exact person who is complaining, to either file for harassment or to send a cease and desist order, which is probably going to be more than I can afford, but I guess that is my next step if it persists. And guys, thankfully the goat situation is resolved, the other one not so much, but that is not really what this story is about, so I cannot promise updates on that unfortunately. Either way, if you enjoy legal advice, please don't forget to post. And the next one is titled Becoming a Legal Guardian to My Adult Cousin Who Doesn't Seem to Have a Legal Existence. The whole situation is a huge mess, so I will have to describe it in length. Apologies for the wall of text. This is about my cousin, let's call him Jimmy. Jimmy is a developmentally disabled adult. He is in his late 40s, but has the cognitive abilities of an 8-year-old child. He has always lived with his mother. She took care of him until she passed suddenly at the beginning of last year. Jimmy is not capable, and what I suppose was his mom's social security from how he describes it. They were very poor but were capable of buying the basic necessities, and their neighbors gave them second-hand clothes or things they did not need anymore. From what I understand, his mom owned their house, which is quite small and in a derelict state, and some land where they have a few chickens and a garden where they grow vegetables. They are simple people from a rural area who live on very little. Jimmy is partially capable of living on his own, that is, he can do some basic cooking, do the laundry, the house cleaning and the groceries if it is a store he knows. He also takes care of the chicken and the garden, but he cannot drive, can barely read and is not really capable of functioning in an environment he doesn't know. He cannot take care of anything like paying the bills, filing taxes, he doesn't have a bank account or anything like that. He is also shy and afraid of strangers. He keeps his cash in a box and knows not to spend more than he has, but really doesn't have a fine grasp of how money works. I should add that he is the kindest person I know and a hard-working man who never complains about anything. After his mom's passing, Jimmy stayed alone in their home with no one to take care of him. He has lived there since then. About a year ago, I was out of state for years and only just came back and decided to go see how he was doing. I was shocked to see that although he has organized his life the best he could, he lives in absolute poverty. There's no working AC in his home and no heating to speak of. He has not paid the bills, probably doesn't know how to, so he has no electricity and no phone. Thankfully, he has a well he can pump water from. He keeps himself clean but with no hot water. It is like he was living in the 19th century. He survives on what little he makes, doing odd jobs, buys some groceries and eats the vegetables he grows and eggs from his chicken, but it is not enough to feed him properly, especially in the winter. It seems that he's been left to live alone after his mom died and has not reached out for help, and no one has given him a hand either. I was very surprised that he was not visited by Adult Protective Services or anything like that after his mom's passing. He clearly needs help and is not capable of asking for it. He needs a guardian but does not have one. His mother was his actual guardian, took any disposition about what would become of him after she died. She was a loving mother, but she was not very socially adapted herself. I and my siblings are the last family he has. I would like to become his guardian because I think he needs help, but I know that he needs to go on living like he's used to because removing him from his house would kill him. I don't think there's any way Adult Protective Services will let him live in his house, but that is what he needs. With help from a guardian, of course. His whole life revolves around his garden, his animals, fishing and taking long walks in the woods. He is capable of organizing his life in the conditions he's used to, however, he completely shuts down when he is with strangers in places he does not know. I have witnessed that. Putting him in a home somewhere would be terrible for him. I inherited a house in a nearby town and I am planning to settle there so I could check on him. He seems to be okay with that. I have reached out to his mom's church pastor and he thinks he could have church members organize a watch to go see him regularly and help him. I thought I would help him get help from services and help him file for SSDI because he is physically fit to work but cannot realistically hold a job and he is disabled. But as I did, so I wasn't able to find an ID, a birth certificate, an SSN or anything. I searched the whole house thoroughly but could not find anything. He does not have a driving license or any kind of ID. He has never filed taxes or anything official like that. He has no idea what a birth certificate even is. I am starting to suspect that Jimmy's mom never bothered to register his birth. That wouldn't be so surprising coming from her. So I have a lot of questions. Number 1, how can I legally become my cousin's guardian? Number 2, how do I proceed to find if he has a birth certificate somewhere and a legal existence? Number 3, if he doesn't, how can he be registered? Number 4, what services can a disabled adult in his situation receive? Number 5, Jimmy's mom owned their house, so I suppose he automatically inherited it as her next of kin. However, I couldn't find a copy of a deed in the house. Where could I get that? And how do I make sure that Jimmy is/becomes the rightful owner of his house and can stay in it? It would be a nightmare for him if he had to leave his land. Edit, we are in Oklahoma. This, with as little damage as possible to Jimmy, is by attorney. Number 1, you can legally become your cousin's guardian by petitioning the court for guardianship. You will have to take a class on what that means and potentially do some extensive paperwork. Sadly, there will be no way to accomplish this easily, as Jimmy will have to be evaluated for guardianship because he likely was never formally assigned a guardian by the state. This means going to mental health professionals, visits from APS. Many people will enter his life, if only briefly, to evaluate if he is safe, competent, etc. Without a lawyer and no guardian, the state will have to immediately take him out of the situation he is currently in if they determine he is mentally unable to care for himself, which is likely given your description of his living conditions without power. With a lawyer, you may still have this problem, but the lawyer could potentially mitigate the issues. If you have his birthday, Number 3, you would petition the court to do this with the county birth registry. There's a process for doing this that would be easier with a court order. Number 4, there are many services he would be entitled to as a disabled adult, too many to list, and they all have complicated hoops to jump through to qualify. Number 5, start with the property appraiser's office to get the information the county has on the property. This will allow you to do a title/deed search with county records. As a guardian, you could put the house into probate as the agent of the sole heir and get it transferred to him. All this is to say that while Jimmy may enjoy living in his own little world, you would need to understand that in society this is viewed very negative and the judge is almost always going to then follow that determination. You're doing the right thing trying to step up, just be prepared for how different the landscape may look at the end of the journey. Update to my post about becoming a guardian to my disabled cousin. This is an update to my post because people were worrying about my cousin and kindly asking for news. I hope this one does not break the rules of the sub. First, the good news, I found an arrangement with my cousin. It took a lot of persuasion, but he agreed to spend his nights at my place while we do some badly needed repairs to his house. At least he has a warm and safe place to sleep, and I can make sure he has a real dinner. He develops anxiety when he needs to change his routine, and this is a major change for him. I am proud of him for being willing to try. I drop him at his house in the morning and either we do some work there or I go to work and he spends his day, as he is used to, tending to his animals and his garden and hiking. He says he needs to hike every day, even in terrible weather, otherwise he feels trapped and gets nervous. Then I pick him up in the evening and we go to my place. He seems okay with his arrangement for now. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, but for now we are fine. He is grieving his mother, and spending time in the place where they live together seems to comfort him, but I feel better knowing he's not spending his nights alone over there in a crumbling house. To find anything about Jimmy's birth certificate in the county records. The owner of this house and the land around it. I am meeting with a lawyer soon to talk about the guardianship issues, and we will need to discuss the rest too. I really hope that trying to become his guardian officially is not going to do more harm than good, and that he won't end up losing his house or being forced to live somewhere else against his will. I'm afraid this is going to be an uphill battle, but I'm ready. And guys, thank God there is another update to this story. Update: I finally became a guardian to my adult cousin. Update to my post about my cousin Jimmy. First of all, warm thanks to all the people who checked on us. I'm here to share good news. I finally got guardianship of my cousin after a hearing with a judge. It was a tedious process with lots of paperwork, but it worked in the end. I hired a lawyer who was very helpful. Jimmy and I received visits from social services and doctors to evaluate him. Jimmy was not really happy with this, as talking to people he doesn't know gives him anxiety, but he did his best. He was formally evaluated for his disability, which had not been done since he was a kid. The social workers determined, as I had, that he could not stay in his home, but they agreed that he was safe with me. I was afraid they would remove him, but they were really helpful and agreed that the best place for him is with me. He will also be receiving services from the state, which will be a good thing, especially for his access to healthcare. We finished renovating a room with a bathroom and a little kitchen for him in my house. This way he lives with me, but he has privacy when he wants to be alone. He worked hard around the house. The house I am renovating was in a very poor state, so there's no shortage of work to be done. Jimmy keeps himself busy and he gets to exercise as much as he needs, so he is feeling well. I still drive him to his house regularly so he can fish in the creek and hike on the path he knows. We are exploring the nature near my home so he can find new places to hike. On a side note, we finally found Jimmy's birth certificate with great difficulty because he was registered under his mother's maiden name and with a different first name. From what I heard, it might have looked like a good idea at the time, but it certainly did not help us. Anyway, I am quite pleased with the way the situation turned out. Jimmy now has a safe place to stay and someone to take care of him, and he looks happy with his new life. And I gotta say guys, I am really delighted by this story. This is probably one of the most wholesome legal advice stories we have ever read, and it is absolutely amazing to see the level of just empathy and sympathy this OP has for his cousin. If only more people in the world could be like this guy. Really, at least from me, huge respect. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.